Welcome everybody, and thank you for joining me. As you know, my name is Debbie Donaldson, and I'm hosting this third part of our series called Intentional Choices, Your Corona Journey. And today we're going to be focused on building your future now. I've titled it Building Your Future Now, because you may find that at this particular time, especially when you hear about the extension to the lockdown, and for some of you were anticipating and some of you weren't, but when we hear that extension to the lockdown, it's almost like, what are we doing this for? You know, why are we being compliant? Why are we entrepreneurs? Why did we choose to have our own business? And we start asking ourselves these questions. And I really want to come back to that and say, slow down, it's okay. Let's slow down and ask ourselves those questions, because at this time, when we're faced with many challenges and unusual situations, we need to remind ourselves of why we came here. You know, compliancy and with the lockdown may well be because you want to look after the safety and security of your family. Being an entrepreneur may be because you wanted the autonomy. You want to be in control of your own destiny. You want to be the decision maker of where you are at this point in time. So it's a good space to start when we're thinking about where we are currently, to remind ourselves why we are here, because that's part of us building our future. It's part of us recognizing why we're here, reminding ourselves and bringing us back to that point in time. So I'm going to invite you into a behavior called achievement motivation today. You know, in the last session, we spoke about behaviors and how they would help us move from intention to action. And one of the critical behaviors is this behavior called achievement motivation. It came out in a study that was done in 2015, and there have been many studies that have been done on it. But in one particular study, it focused on the kind of the different elements that individual entrepreneurs, business owners, and people supporting them require, like from a skill set, from a personal behavior point of view. And across 8 different models that are designed to support entrepreneurs, the concept of achievement motivation was one of those personal characteristics or behaviors that was across all of the models, the 7 out of 8 of the models, the most important one. So I'm going to focus on that because that really is about building our future. So let's have a look at it today. I'm going to switch off the webcam as we go into the presentation. So we're going to look at what is this achievement motivation. What is actually achievement motivation, and the fact that it is multi-layered. So let's just look at these 2 words, achievement and motivation. And my invitation to you is to think about this word achievement. When you look at achievement, achievement is when we put great effort into something in order to meet a particular goal. And motivation is when we have a reason. It is the reason why we behave in a certain way. So when you put these 2 together, we are actually talking about the reason why we do things, which is my invitation to you. Why are you at this point? Why are you an entrepreneur, business owner, a supporter of a business owner, whatever your role is? And why are we doing something? The reason we're doing something in order to achieve and put in a lot of effort. And if you relate to the effort it is taking you to adjust and work through this corona journey, it is important to recognize that those 2 things are really, really interlinked, and how powerful they are as a combination of concepts. But there's much more to achievement motivation than I'm going to talk about today, and there are many layers to it. But I will leave you with a canvas of the multiple layers that there are related to achievement motivation. So let's just look for a minute at a couple of statements that I found from a book. One or two of you asked me about some leadership books, and I'm partway through this book by Jordan Peterson called 12 Rules for Life. And one of the introductions that he speaks about is when there's no value, there's no meaning. And he's talking about us as individuals taking responsibility for where we are. And when we take responsibility, we create meaning for our life. And if you look at the resource that I gave you on the website, It helps you connect to what I value and why I do things and the need that I'm satisfying in my choices, which allows me to connect to my meaning. And can you imagine if each one of us, if we focus on that meaning, that reason why we do things, and we could live that out, if we could live that out and live properly in relation to what we mean, it would open up space for all of us to flourish. And I think it's a really an interesting invitation that Dr. Peterson gives us, is to actually look at the meaning that we have attached to why we do things, because it opens up that whole opportunity for all of us to flourish. So let's have a look at what we covered last week so that we can remember that it's a building block to this week. We spoke about the intention action gap and what behaviors. It was really an invitation to you to look at the behaviors that you are adopting, which would allow you to change this, to narrow this gap of intention to action, and actually be able to make the statement, I action my intentions. Now, we spoke about two concepts of refresh and renew because we've been called to do that in our businesses, in our personal life, and in ourselves. And I went and reflected on some readings that I had done last year related to Koos Bester, the chairman of NASPARS. And I was just once again reminded of how high his achievement motivation is. And I looked at what he did to refresh some of what he offered in the marketplace during his career. When he started MTN, he had no concept of the demand that there would be for cellular technology. And so when the demand came, I mean, literally today we have more cell phone technology available than we do have people in the country. More cell phones being used than we have people. So he had to look at what he had estimated, him and his team, and say we got it wrong. And so he had to look at new ways to actually do things in order to respond to that challenge. He also renewed the whole face of television, paid for entertainment, by introducing DSTV into the marketplace. And that's just an example of one entrepreneur that has done amazing things in the South African market. If you have time, you may want to Google the Spinach King on YouTube. It's also an awesome invitation to see what a local entrepreneur has done in the Western Cape in moving from intention to action and saying, I actually acted on my intentions. So you were invited last week into these behaviors, right? Into what behaviors am I displaying? And so now these behaviors are almost we can describe them, they can be easily described in one line. But achievement motivation is not about one line, it is about a complex set of behaviors. Now my challenge to you is, and I've just put it yet last week, I said to you, think about where you are. And I put that quote that I used last week into the statement, I'm not a victim, I can control my reactions, I do have a choice. And so you know exactly where you are, you do have a choice. So now this achievement motivation is a more complex behavior and is made up of different things. And it talks about exercising our right to choice. So what is achievement motivation? Now, I looked for a number of different definitions for you, but one of the definitions that really stands out for me is that achievement motivation is a behavior involving competition with a standard of excellence. Not the kind of traditional competition that we use when we want to compete against people, but actually, because that's what almost immediately comes to mind, but actually competing with a standard of excellence. Now, for some of us, we can think of one standard of excellence, and we can be very single-minded in what we think is the standard of excellence. My invitation now is to expand your view of a standard of excellence and to look at it at a multidimensional level. And I've just chosen this acronym SDM for you. Set myself challenging goals. And it's almost like instead of switch on my brain, which was the book recommended last week, is really look at switch demand on. Okay, so if you want to remember this acronym, think about switched mind. And we think about setting myself challenging goals. And so many of us do set ourselves challenging goals. But just think about those challenging goals that really stretch you, but you can achieve them, and that are driven from a personal need or initiative. I was looking at Sia Kalisa and what he had, some of what he had quoted during the World Cup. And it was amazing to see that he had kind of set a challenging goal that if they didn't win that first game in the World Cup, they would have to play each game like it was a final. Now imagine having that goal as every game is a final. And it was driven from a very personal need, a need to unite this country in a way that we could demonstrate that a collective team from a multifaceted background could achieve a goal. So here's 3 aspects to that standard of excellence I was speaking about earlier. When you look at your standard of excellence, I want to pause and ask you this question. When last did you set yourself a personal best goal? Now, for sportsmen, they are very used to sending a personal best. For businessmen and women, we are very used to setting up goals for the business. But you make up the business. You are responsible for how you're behaving at home. What personal best goals have you set yourself? You know, it was interesting. I was talking to Steve before we started, and some of the challenges is how to use my vacuum cleaner, how to find where the dog food is, and some of those things are little microcosms of personal best goals that you're doing at a personal level by staying at home at the moment. One of the challenges I thought was interesting, when I was reading a book, one of the quotes in the book, one of the stats that they quoted is we spend on average in America, spend 20 minutes a day with their children. So what's your personal best goal with your child today? So when you have a look at those personal bests, where are your personal bests? So a measure of excellence starts with ourselves. What are we doing to personally improve ourselves moment by moment, day by day? And in a goal, what are you looking to be better than others? How are you comparing yourself to others? Now, this one for me personally is an uncomfortable, like better than others. It almost implies, well, then others must be worse than me. But I want to invite you to look at this in a different way. If you are looking at others that are excellent in their field, it gives you an opportunity to be able to learn from others that are excellent in their field. It gives you also an opportunity to look at others and say, where am I unique in what I do so that I can be excellent in my field in uniqueness? So where are you unique at the moment? How are you uniquely showing up as an individual for yourself, for others, in your community, in your businesses? How are you focused on others and saying, I want to surround myself by people who are best in class? Because what is that excellent, that standard of excellence? It's being able to hear those that are also good in class. So how much time have you spent focusing on learning about people who are really good? And of course then, to look at the external gold standard. What is your external gold standard? Is it the SAN standards when you talk about quality standards? It's amazing. The latest plumbers that are coming through the system, their gold standard that are training as apprentices, their absolute gold standard with quality installation is around the SAN standard. My personal gold standard was to make sure that I am an internationally recognized coach, and I chose a program that would take me through a 3-year journey in order to support individuals, on top of my experience, on top of the other things I do. So yes, my gold standard was that external standard. What is your gold standard? One of the plumbers I worked with when we were looking at facilitating his strategic initiatives, he looked at a gold standard. He had created a gold standard for his business with an international business. He had done his research around all kinds of plumbers, and for him, the gold standard was this international business that he had identified. And he set that gold standard at that level, and he started working towards that piece by piece. What is your measure of excellence? just take 10 seconds to reflect on these 3 dimensions of your measure of excellence. And go beyond better than others is to defeat others. It's not about that. How do we all flourish? Can you imagine if each of us were setting a standard of excellence, one person at a time, what it would do for our families, what it would do for our communities, what it would do for our businesses? Especially when we set a goal to connect it to our personal needs. If you're setting objectives at the moment in your business and the individuals who work for you have not been able to connect it to a personal need, connect themselves to a personal need that it is satisfying them by achieving that goal, you're missing a wonderful opportunity, because when I am personally connected to a goal, I am switched on. It gives me that switch on in the mind. So let's just have a look at the multiple components that are involved in this achievement motivation. It's not one component. Now, my invitation when you think about multiple components is for those of you who are excessive overachievers. At this point in time, when I open up this next slide, giving us a visual view of the multiple components of achievement motivation. If you are over the top and you are draining your energy because you have such a high level of achievement motivation, then it's my invitation to you is to take a moment and look at these components of achievement motivation and really see where maybe you could throttle back just a little bit on parts of these areas and not be so OCD, so over the top, that you are not focused on what it is that is too much, too excess. Okay, because it can be very hard to live with a person. There's a shadow side to achievement motivation when you are over the top and you drain people around you. So my invitation now is we cannot cover all of these areas, but take a look at this kind of piece of art. I say that with a tongue in cheek. I recognize it is a simple piece of activity put together, but have a look at this. Part of your journey now has been to be present. My invitation is be present now so you can own your own story that you're writing. These are the components of achievement or motivation. Understanding myself and how I show up, recognizing my own personal barriers and how I need to get help in order from my team or outside or from mentors, from people who are experts in the field, from coaches. How do I support myself from my own team who are strong in other areas? Looking at those external barriers that I am faced with. Coronavirus is just one of those barriers, but you are the core owner of your journey. So how do you actually look at those external barriers, which is this coronavirus, and say, how do I navigate a different action plan in order still to achieve the goal that I have set and my long-term goal? And one of the things we forget, and I really just want to remind you, is that we understand what it feels like to fail. And if you have failed before, you know what that feels like, and you don't want that feeling again. Remind yourself as an achievement motivated person of what it is like to fail. It is okay to fail. In fact, it is some of our best lessons come from our failures. But we don't always want to feel like that. And connect to what that felt like. And remind yourself what it feels like to have success, because you have also had success, and connect to that feeling. We forget that. And all of this lands up creating that kind of picture of achievement motivation, and can be broken down into a lot of detail as you build your canvas or tell your story. So I want to just, as we end off, I want to just end off with this quote by Rabbi Abraham Heschel. He says, "Remember that there is meaning beyond absurdity." Remember, this is an absurd, unusual, really strange situation we find ourselves in. And you have meaning that is essential, and your meaning that you have created, the reason why you are doing what you do, is beyond this challenge, is beyond this absurdity. Know that every deed counts, that every word is power. Above all, remember that you must build your life as if it were a work of art. That achievement motivation canvas is a possible start to your work of art. Where are you on your work of art? I really want to encourage you to own your journey, be the owner of the change that you want to see. And as always, be free to absolutely go to the website, which is a start. It is a very simple start of the journey of creating your own story. It's a practice that just allows you to go there. I want to come back to this quote, and thank you for all of you who have attended. But one of the things that I want to thank you for in your attendance is the meaning you have created for me in this journey. You know, the value of being able to present to you also makes me look at what am I myself in a fresh way, and creates that connection for me. So I want to thank you for being present this morning and for creating that value back for me, and I really want to encourage you to come back to what is the value for you, what is the need for you, so that as you go through this journey, this balance of your Corona journey, but more as you begin the future now for the next step in your journey, come back to the meaning, really come back to that meaning, and recognize it goes beyond this absurd and challenging situation. Thank you.